Hey guys, I was doing a video the other day with my son and I realized that a lot of young kids want to get into music, but they don't know how. And also, I also realized that I had done a sort of guide into how you can make music if you have no music background. You'll see that on the videos. The guide I made was too advanced in a way to be a beginner's guide. So I'm going to put together a guide that's going to show you what you need to get started with electronic music, even if all you have is a laptop computer. A complete beginner's guide. What I think are the first steps that would be good. I was thinking about how my son would like to get into music, but he's starting off now. So what would he need to get started? And so these tutorials in a way are for him, but they're really for anyone who wants to get started with electronic music, but you're just at the beginning. Okay. All right. What we're going to use today is a program called Ableton. Some people call it Ableton Live. But the thing is that this program, what I really like about it is that they give you a full copy that you can use for 90 days for free. So if you want to get started with this, you have basically 3 months where you can figure out if you like this program. And then if you don't have to pay anything. But it's a really good program. So I definitely... I like this. There are other programs, but since I'm going to be doing the tutorials in this, I suggest if you haven't done it yet to go to ableton.com and download a copy of your free demo. The thing that we have to start with are the very basics. And the very basics include how to get the sound in and out of the computer. So when you load up Ableton or Ableton, I'll probably say it in different ways, you're going to maybe see that this color is orange down here on the bottom, or that you have an off up here on the top that's like same color. Go into the settings, and when you're in the preferences here in the settings, you go to audio. Now in the audio, you want to take this first one, input, and you want to choose a way that the computer is going to get sound into it. So I have a mixer connected, but if you are not using like a microphone or like external synthesizers, you can just have this set up on your MacBook or whatever computer internal microphone. That way, if you do want to record something like your voice, you can do it with the internal microphone. However, you probably won't do that in the beginning here. What's more important is that you activate this. This is how the sound comes out of the machine. So again, I have mine connected to a mixer, but if you have only a system output, like your speakers on your computer, that's what you would do. You use system output, okay? If you have your, you can plug in a external plug into your headphone jack, and if you send that out into a mixer or into like a amp, it can connect to your speakers, and that way you can hear the sound on the speakers and not just on the speakers inside the computer. Once you've completed that, okay, you can go to this thing here and bring it all the way down to the bottom. The reason why you want to do that is because this is the amount of brain power that the computer is using to work on your music. And if it's very low, if you have a lot of parts in your music, it's going to get like it's going to stutter and it's not going to work properly. So what you want to do is you want to make it basically as big as possible. So as your music has more and more parts to it, you have enough space that the brain of the computer can work on the music. Once you've done that, okay, at this point, you're basically ready to go as far as getting the sounds in and out of the computer, okay? The sounds that you are given are going to be here in the library of sounds, and what you can do is just simply go into sounds to start off, okay? What these are essentially MIDI like instruments. So if I were to take one of these and just bring it into the MIDI, you will see that an instrument gets created. So when you go into the part here that says sounds, you can see that there's a lot of different sounds if you scroll through them. And what you want to do with these is take one of them and pull it up into the MIDI part here, okay? Now, what is happening is you've just taken a musical device and you've brought it into a part here where it's basically a computer program telling the musical device to make sound. And for you to make this musical device make sound, you double click here so that you can create a little house for it, a little box, a clip it's called. So when you open up the clip, you will see what looks like a keyboard on the side, and you'll see these blocks here. What happens is basically you can put in the notes that you want that machine to play. So if you want to do that with your mouse, you can do it like this. You press B on the computer and you get this kind of like pencil button, okay? And when you put in when you click, you'll see that you can make notes. If you want to hear what those notes sound like, you press play. Now, if you can't hear anything, it's because your sound output might not be the right way. So you might have to turn up the volume. So you can hear that the sound is coming through the speakers of the computer. What I need to do is I need to take the sound and I need to make it come out of the speakers that I have that are connected. So I have to go back into the input part here and I can click the mixer, but what's more important is that the output has the mixer. And now you'll see that the sound is coming through the speakers and it's also coming through here. Once you have that and you've designed the first couple notes, the sound that you picked, right, can have different sound to it. Obviously, volume is pretty clear, but these other things are going to affect the sound, okay? All these sounds here are mostly what are called melodic sounds. Meaning they're creating like a sound that's more like a piano, a bell, some kind of guitar or something like that. They're not so much the percussive sounds. For the percussive sounds, I'll show you how you do that in a second. So basically, let's imagine that this, okay, we're just going to take this and we're going to take the whole thing. I'm going to get out of the B button by pressing the B button again. That's going to give me the pointer. And I'm going to take this whole thing and I'm going to bring it down to like, let's go into E1. So the first octave and the key of E, the note of E. So what you're going to do now is here, it got lower, right? The sound got lower. So if the sound got lower, it's more like a bass sound. Maybe you don't want it to be so long, and maybe you want to kind of shape it a little bit to make this as clear as possible. I'm just going to find a bass sound now, and I'm going to go up into, let's say, something like a dark bass, pull it in. And you have the beginning of what could be potentially a bass line, okay? Again, like I said, you can mess with the sounds if you play with the instrument, okay? So that's a good beginning. And then if you look here on the sounds, right underneath it you see the drums, okay? So these are all different kinds of drum kits. So when you go through the different drum sounds, you'll notice that there are a ton of different ones, but this one, let's take one for example, take a Chicago kick. We bring it into the other MIDI, okay? And when it's in there, basically what it's doing, it's a whole different machine. And you can see it's a more complicated machine in this case specifically. So what you're going to see here is that there's a bunch of little boxes, and these are all individual sounds. And if you double click here, and you'll see all those sounds listed. Almost always, if you press a B, again, you can get the pen. Almost always, you'll see that on the bottom of this group is going to be the bass, the kick. And the higher you go up are going to be sounds that are higher in frequency. So if you just want to do the bass right now, you can just put in the 4 kicks like that, and then play that. And if it plays with the bass line, so the kick drum and the bass line play together, then you have this. Now, that is kind of intense, right? So let's just bring it down a little bit for now so that we have maybe a place where we can just work with this in our ears without getting too tired of it. So I'm just going to take these filters down. And now it's working better. Okay, for now. We can, as the song goes forward, we can play with these. But for now, we'll keep it something like this. Let's look at instruments, okay? The next sound here that you'll see in this category are more instruments, but these are actual equipment that is like a full piece of equipment, like a synthesizer or a drum machine that has a lot of instruments in it. So for example, if you open up analog here, you'll see that in analog, which is a synthesizer, there's lots of sounds. So if I were to take a synthesizer and I would take maybe like a string sound, I want to bring it in, but can you see how it's not working because it's not going into a MIDI file like it was supposed to before? It's not going into a MIDI track, but I'm trying to put it into an audio track. Well, that's not going to work. So what you have to do is you have to go like this. You have to click here where it's empty, and you have to go Shift, Command T, and that's going to make you a new MIDI, or you can left click and say insert MIDI track, and that'll also make you a new MIDI. Okay, you can, if you don't want it right now, you can just get rid of it. So now that we have this new MIDI, okay, and just for organization, let's push this over to the side where it was before. That's not going to change the sound, but what that's going to do is have us in line with everything that we've done so far. But remember how we said the notes here, we had it in E, right? So if you want the song to stay in E, what you do is get out of your B tool, grab with A, Control A will select everything, okay? Make a copy of this, then go into the string thing that you did, click here and paste it by pressing Control V or Command V. Now, the same sound, the same thing that's happening on the bass is now happening on what's called strings. Let's hear what that sounds like. That can be cool, okay? What you might want to do though is then create a more complex sound. So what you can do here is obviously move these around, change the notes or whatever you want to do. But the process is like experimenting. So you just kind of got to play with it and figure it out. If you want to hear what it sounds like, you click play here. And these are the new things that are coming out of this. What I want to actually do now is bring it back how it was before. And for now, I'm going to bring this up to like a E2. And then I'm going to make these, make sure they're in line, and make them a little bit longer. Now, if they get out of shape, okay, there's things that you can do to bring them back into shape. So what you can do is you can select the notes. Then if you right click, what you can do is go to quantize, and that'll push the notes back to where they were supposed to be. Okay, so let me make you a better example so you can see clearly. If the notes are slightly off like this, right? And you go and you select them all and you go right click, quantize, they'll go back into the right spot, okay? Now, for you to continue developing this idea, you don't have to necessarily do it like that. Let's do something maybe like this, where I take one of the notes, take another one away, I'll leave a couple, okay? And then what I'll do is I'll make one of the notes a little bit different. Let's say I'll go up here. So now my sound is this. And you can tell that's pretty boring, right? So what you might want to do is make the times that the sound changes more complicated. And one way to do that is to make it a longer pattern. So you'll grab the thing here, the arrow, and you'll bring it out into 3. Now, if you bring it out into 3, you'll see this twice as long. And if I do the thing of copying these, Control C, Control V, or if I want to make it even simpler for myself, I can grab these all and just hit this button over here. So what you want to do is you grab these two notes, select them, hit Command D, and then you'll duplicate them. And then if you want to put them in other places, you can put them also in other places. So then now suddenly your sound is a little bit more complicated. Since it's a sound that's a long sound, also you might want to lengthen some of the notes. So it'll be like this. Now, that's kind of okay. I mean, it's the beginning of something, but if the alignment is not right, you want to fix the alignment. And also what you can do, if you take this and you duplicate it again, okay, then grab it and pull it back over here. What I want you to do is take this and go up 7 notes. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and just stay there for a second. So that's kind of cool, but do you hear how these and these are the same? Maybe we move those into something else, something maybe more like this. The point is, it's very simple now, but again, if you take the instrument and you bring it back down into a more soft tone, so now that we're kind of getting a thing, you can hear it's a good notes, but the sound is not right. So you can click here and get a different sound. We can get something else out of this analog instrument. Let's say something like a horn sound might sound good. We can press play and see. But if it's not quite right, you might want to look for something else, okay? And you'll find eventually that you'll come across what you're looking for, okay? For us, for today, we can do something like this, okay? Now, what happens is the music sometimes is a little bit boring like that. So you might want to add effects. So if you go down here and you take an effect like a delay, for example, and you put that on, let's say, one of the sounds, let's say the bass sound. Notice how this bass now, it's like bouncing differently. We can make it kind of cooler. And the organ too, if we want to do something to it that might sound cooler, we can do something like, we can do something really cool as well. Like we can do something like the, so on a sound like a sound like an organ, if you put a reverb on there, maybe you can do something like a big room. It's going to sound like it's inside like a big church or something like that. And you can make that sound more by adding more of the signal or making the size of the room bigger or adding more time that the sound goes away slowly. Remember how here I said you could filter? So you can see is that this is the way that you can slowly get started with making music. But the thing is that I'm not going to go through the tutorial and be like, oh, this gate does this reverb does this, because there's a bunch of videos online where you can see what reverbs do what, how instruments work. The goal here is to get you moving forward. So like in time, you will figure out a lot of these things. But I just kind of want to get you moving so that you feel like there's some kind of song happening in a way that feels like you're making it yourself, okay? So in the next videos, we can go through a bunch of other things that we're gonna do, but this is a good starting point for us so that we can get started with making music, even if you don't know how really. And if you're excited about this stuff and you wanna find out more, check out the other tutorials that are coming up.